You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Cinema Gold Show. As always, I'm your host, Larry Leese. And on today's episode of Classic Rewind, we take a look back at Dazed and Confused, a cinematic time capsule of youth, freedom, and rock and roll. Dazed and Confused isn't just a movie. It's a mood, a memory, and a mixtape of adolescence soaked in 70s sunshine and rebellion. This 1993 cult classic captures the chaos and clarity of coming of age in a way few films ever have. It's not just about growing up. It's about that one fleeting night that defines everything. Set in the heart of 1976, but released in the grunge-soaked early 90s, Dazed and Confused is a perfect example of how great art transcends its release date. While filmed in 1993, the movie radiates the texture, tensions, and tonal freedom of the 70s, when denim was tight, cars were loud, and rebellion simmered just beneath the surface of American youth culture. What Richard Linklater gave us wasn't just a throwback for baby boomers. It was a deeply resonant, multi-generational slice of life film that teens and 20-somethings across every era could relate to. From its opening moments with Aerosmith's Sweet Emotion gliding over slow-mo shots of muscle cars rolling into a high school parking lot, you know exactly where you are. And more importantly, you remember how it felt. The last day of school, the freedom, the aimlessness, the weightless feeling of possibility, and the anxiety that you had no idea what you were supposed to be doing with it. Rather than tell a story with conflict and closure, Linklater does something braver. He drops the audience into a single day, a single moment in time, and lets us live there. In a sense, Dazed and Confused is a hangout film. But what elevates it beyond similar entries is that it doesn't just show teenagers hanging out, it invites you to hang out with them. So many teen movies fall into the trap of archetypes. You've seen them all: the jock, the nerd, the stoner, the pretty girl, the outsider. But in Dazed and Confused, those roles aren't rigid, they're flexible, overlapping, and often completely subverted. It doesn't treat its cast as cardboard cutouts. Instead, it builds a living, breathing ecosystem of teenagers who are fully realized, even when they barely speak. Take Randall Pink Floyd. He's got all the ingredients of a Hollywood high school quarterback: charm, confidence, leadership. But he's also thoughtful, torn, and visibly burnt out. When his coaches demand that he sign a pledge swearing off drugs and alcohol, Pink's inner conflict doesn't explode, it simmers. He spends the movie weighing whether it's worth sacrificing his freedom for the sake of team unity, or if caving would make him just another cog in the machine. Then there's Mitch Kramer, whose journey from wide-eyed freshman to semi-baptized stoner serves as a low-stakes but symbolic rite of passage. The camera spends time lingering on his face as he fumbles through conversations, gets hazed, swings a bat at a mailbox, and slowly adjusts to being seen, not just by his peers, but by himself, as part of the next wave. And we can't talk about this film without diving into the cultural lightning bolt that was Matthew McConaughey's Wooderson. Equal parts sleazy, sage, and strangely comforting. Wooderson is the guy who just can't let go of high school. He shouldn't be cool, but he is. While his character toes the line of predatory, McConaughey's easy charisma somehow keeps him from veering fully into cringe. His lines have become iconic. But the real brilliance lies in how grounded, even lonely, he feels beneath the bravado. Supporting characters like the ultra-intelligent Cynthia, the angsty Tony, and the try-too-hard Don all contribute to this complex, interwoven social map. And the film respects every one of them enough to give them space, even if only for a few moments. Most films rely on rising action, climax, and resolution. Dazed and Confused says, no. Instead, it charts the course of a single day, the last day of school before summer vacation, and lets that serve as both timeline and metaphor. There is no central conflict, no final game, no big romantic declaration. What we get instead is a beautiful mosaic of moments: a freshman's awkward initiation, a senior debating a future he's not sure he wants, a party that may or may not happen, a group of teenagers meandering from gas stations to baseball fields to moonlit back roads. The structure may seem loose on the surface, but it's incredibly precise in its pacing. Linklater orchestrates the interactions like a symphony where each character drifts in and out of each other's orbits in a way that feels entirely organic. Mitch and his friends run from seniors only to end up later drinking with them. Pink floats between social circles, silently auditioning various futures. Even characters like Slater, the quintessential stoner, are never boxed in. They're allowed to exist without the pressure of development. This open structure gives the film an almost documentary-like realism. It feels like you're eavesdropping on a real group of teenagers on a real night. No punchlines, no moralizing, just vibes. And you can't talk about Dazed and Confused without talking about the music. This soundtrack is practically a character in itself, providing both emotional context and historical texture. With over 30 songs licensed for the film, and many more that couldn't be, the playlist is a lovingly curated time capsule of 70s rock. From the opening guitar riff of Sweet Emotion to the driving riff of Slow Ride over the closing credits, every track feels like it was ripped straight from a teenager's mixtape in 1976. It's not just that the songs are good, it's that they're used perfectly. Black Sabbath's Paranoid underscores Slater's paranoid rants. Alice Cooper's School's Out punctuates the moment of academic freedom with anarchic glee. The songs don't comment on the action, they are the action. They're what the kids are blaring in their cars, what's spinning on someone's record player, what's in their blood. Music in Dazed and Confused is not a backdrop, it's a fuel source. The soundtrack's impact went beyond the film itself, reviving interest in 70s rock for an entire generation in the 90s. In fact, the film's success prompted 2 soundtrack albums, rare for a film with no chart-topping singles. And I personally have actually listened to the soundtrack multiple times, just because of how great the music is for this film. Visually, Dazed and Confused doesn't dazzle with spectacle. It seduces with subtlety. The production design, led by John Frick, is a masterclass in immersive detail. The haircuts, the muscle cars, the t-shirts, the dingy fluorescent lighting in the pool hall. Everything screams authenticity. Unlike modern period pieces that often overdo the aesthetic to remind you this is the past, Linklater's team leans into naturalism. You never feel like you're watching actors play dress-up. You feel like you're flipping through a high school yearbook or reliving your own awkward adolescence. Lee Daniels' cinematography helps this mood by using warm, dusty color tones and handheld camera work. Scenes often play out in long takes, with overlapping dialogue, enhancing that lived-in, you-are-there sensation. The editing style resists flashy cuts, allowing us to hang out in moments instead of rushing through them. And while the film features an ensemble cast, it rarely feels crowded. The camera glides between characters and settings with ease, making the whole town feel like one interconnected stage for teenage expression and experimentation. Many teen films treat rebellion as either comedy or tragedy. You're either getting drunk and crashing dad's car, Ferris Bueller, or you're ending up in jail. Dazed and Confused takes a different route. It treats rebellion as a rite of passage, not necessarily noble, not always productive, but real. The kids aren't staging protests or dropping out of school. They're getting stoned, skipping pep rallies, lying to their parents, challenging authority in small but meaningful ways. Pink's refusal to sign the pledge isn't cinematic revolution. It's quiet, personal resistance, and that makes it more powerful. Even the infamous hazing scenes, while shocking and borderline cruel, aren't depicted as traumatic or villainous. They're treated as twisted traditions, part of a cultural cycle where pain is passed down like a relic. And yet the film doesn't entirely condone it either. It just shows it. This ambiguity is where Linklater's genius shines. He doesn't tell you what to think. He just shows you what happened and trusts you to feel something. When Dazed and Confused debuted, it wasn't a runaway hit. Critics were split. Audiences were confused. Studios didn't know how to market a movie with no plot and no major stars. But like many great films, it grew in power over time. On home video, DVD, and late-night cable, the movie found its audience. It became a required viewing for generations of teenagers looking for something that felt real. It inspired countless filmmakers, musicians, and writers. Quentin Tarantino has listed it among his favorite films. Roger Ebert came around to it, and its influence echoes in everything from Freaks and Geeks to Stranger Things to Euphoria. It also launched careers: Parker Posey, Ben Affleck, Joey Lauren Adams, and of course, Matthew McConaughey. Who's three?
All right.
All Rights launched an entire career. The film didn't just reflect culture, it shaped it. In the end, Dazed and Confused isn't trying to teach you anything, it doesn't ask questions, and it doesn't provide answers. It's not interested in dramatic arcs or moral lessons. What it offers instead is a vibe, a long, aimless, unforgettable night in the lives of a few dozen kids, trying to figure out who they are, where they're going, and what music they want playing when they get there. It's a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful nights are the ones where nothing much happens. Where you find yourself in a field, a parking lot, or a diner at 3 a.m., talking about life with someone you barely know, where time stretches and blurs, where you're dazed by your youth and confused about what comes next. And that's okay, because growing up isn't about having answers. It's about hanging out, getting lost, and maybe, just maybe, finding something worth remembering. And with that, we give you our rating of the movie, and I'm going to give it, I'm going to say 4 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty good movie for its time, and I think it's still a good one, even in today's terms. But let me know what you think on Dazed and Confused. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and give us your take on the ranking for Dazed and Confused. And with that, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/cinemagoldshow, or just scan the QR code right there. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.